Hey everybody, I'm Naya Calmels from Mindful Movement, and today I'm going to be showing you some tricks and tips for travelers and people on the go. So first, let's start with the assumption that you are in an area where you don't have a lot of space, because often when we travel, that's the case. So we're going to start with some standing exercises that don't take up a lot of room, and then we'll go into some seated exercises that also don't take up a lot of room. Let's start with simple toe rises. So spread your toes wide, ground down through your feet, and think about lifting through the pelvic floor almost like you're sending it like an elevator. As you do so, you're lengthening through the spine. Imagine that you have a string from the crown of the head reaching up towards the sky. So you're already starting to stretch a little bit. If you don't mind people looking at what you're doing while you're stretching, then feel free to just draw your arms up towards the ceiling as well. Spread your fingertips out wide and just do this little kind of back and forth rocking of the weight on the soles of the feet, kind of like you'd see a cat do, and stretching from side to side. If you don't really like people watching you when you're stretching, which I can relate to, then you might just keep your arms low and just roll your shoulders back, but really think about energizing through the back body. All right, let's get started with toe rises. So now that we've gotten more length through the body, we're going to think about keeping that length as we draw onto the balls of the feet, lifting the heels, and then slowly and with control coming back down. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm not going to do very many reps, but you'll probably have a whole lot more time to do lots of reps while you're in transit. All right, I have my handy little carry-on bag here. This is actually the bag that I usually travel with, and the reason for that is because I really like the height of the handle. Aside from it being ergonomic, I also get to use it as my little prop for my exercises and stretches. So I'll start with working on glutes and hamstrings. I'm thinking about grounding down through my feet just as I was when I was doing my toe rises. And now I'm thinking about stabilizing on one foot as I send the opposite leg back behind me. As I reach back through the heel, I'm energizing through the back of the leg and coming back to center. I'm thinking about trying to keep the pelvis square in front of me. It's a small movement, and I'm trying to make sure that I don't allow the pelvis to fly back with the leg or the rib cage to flare forward. So we'll do 5 more here, and 4, and 3, and 2, and 1, and then switch to the other leg. Ground down through one leg and reach back through the other. Really reaching through the heel. And 5, 4, shoulders are dropped, 2, and 1. If you don't need to hold on to anything, then you'll just keep your hands on your hips, which also provides good practice with balance. All right, let's start on your right leg, ground down through the opposite foot, and now we're going to take the leg away from midline and back to center, and away from midline and back to center. 3, 2, 1. Switch to the other side. And continuing on this side, lifting through the pelvic floor, drawing lower abs to spine, lengthening those spinal extensor muscles. 3 more here for 3, and 2, and 1. Now a couple options. We did back and we did to the sides. You can also externally rotate the leg, drawing it back behind you or out to the side. You can also play with internal rotation of the leg to work different parts of the leg and glutes. So lots of variation here. All right, let's do a couple seated exercises. So seated in your chair, you want to ground down through the feet. For people who are of shorter stature, such as myself, you might need to come to the front of your seat in order to get both feet firmly planted on the ground. With that in mind, lengthen through the spine. You can place your hands either on the tops of the thighs, on your chair, on your hips, whatever's most comfortable, and you're going to curl the pelvis underneath you. It's almost as though you're trying to bring the pubic bone towards the belly button. And curl underneath you. You should feel a lengthening the lower spine, and then release back to your normal seated posture. And curl, and back to center. We'll do it 3 more times. Curling the pelvis underneath you, and coming back. And notice I'm not rounding my upper spine. I'm just curling the pelvis underneath me and coming back to center. Last one, curling and coming back. All right, we're now going to go into sits bone reaches. The sits bones are the bony landmarks of the pelvis, the bones that we literally sit upon. So we'll start on the right side, and I'm going to think about sending that sits bone down into my seat. And as I ground down, I'm hiking the other hip up slightly. This is just a result of the work I'm doing here. My focus is on lengthening through the side body, specifically taking the area right below the rib cage and above the side of the pelvis and stretching it as much as I can. And then I'm going to alternate from side to side. So if I put my hands on my hips, you can actually see how much I'm moving here. From side to side. So these could also be done from a standing position. So if you're waiting in line at the airport, at the grocery store, your back's starting to bother you, your hips are starting to get a little grouchy, these are also exercises you can do there. All right, I do these oftentimes when I'm in the car and I can put my car in cruise control. So keep that in mind. If you happen to be a Tesla owner, you might be able to do this more regularly than the rest of us. All right, so we've done pelvic tilts north is what we call those. We did sits bone reaches, and then we can do glute squeezes. So we'll start by just squeezing the butt, squeezing the glutes, and releasing. And squeezing and releasing. And as we squeeze, we're thinking about lifting pelvic floor, drawing lower abs to spine, lengthening the spine. I'm just keeping my arms by my sides as I do this. And you might see a little bit of movement in my legs. You might see me rise a little bit and fall again, and rise and fall. But there isn't a lot of movement that is to be seen here. There's a lot happening all around the hip joints though. So as we're sitting on these postural muscles, it's helpful to actually engage them so that they don't get amnesia and forget to actually kick in and work. So now we can just do one side and then the other, making it a little more challenging. And now we can do the right butt cheek, squeeze and release. And the left side, squeeze and release. I know this is really weird stuff, but it works, so why not do it? All right, go back to both sides at the same time, squeezing the glutes and releasing, and squeezing and releasing, and squeezing and releasing. All right, so those were glute squeezes. I encourage you when you're traveling to move as much as you possibly can, whether it's in a seated position, whether it's standing. If you're able to get up and walk around, whether it's at the airport or at a gas station when you're filling up your car with gas, get as much movement as you can. Not only will it make the journey more interesting, it'll also make it more enjoyable when you get to your destination. So, as always, movement is medicine. Make sure you use it to benefit you and keep moving. Let me know if you have any questions about any of the exercises that I showed you, and please do give me feedback. Let me know how these work out for you. Have a great day and safe travels.